So again, it's a great privilege to be back again on the sixth session, as Madam Marianne has mentioned. For those who are new, my name is Andrew Kibe. And as you can see, my face is not the one who probably popped up in your mind. I'm a financial consultant as well as risk management. So the purpose or the objective of these sessions we're doing is basically to empower as many people as we can with the right knowledge around personal finance. So for those of you who have joined, our approach is very different from what exists outside there. We basically approach all our teachings from a psychological point of view with the goal of turning around your mindset. And the essence of that is because everything in this world is the mindset. It's all about the mindset. Everything you can think about is about the mindset. People don't become poor because of all the reasons we hear outside there. People don't struggle financially because of all the reasons the world has made us believe are the key reasons behind them. Lack of education, lack of a job, and all those things. Those are secondary. The primary reason why people struggle financially has nothing to do with anything outside yourself other than inside yourself. And inside yourself, what we're alluding to is the kind of mindset that you have. So when we started, we handled the first part of the program, which deals with psychology. So we're looking at the mind. We're trying to understand what is the mind, what is its function. And basically, we summarized by saying that when the scripture is telling us that we are created in the image and likeness of God, it is not something to do physical. It has to do with God is the creator. And if God is the creator and he created us in his image, then we are a reflection of what God is. So if God is the creator, that makes us naturally creators. And so once we get to understand that, the question becomes then how do we create? And basically we delve into the steps, and we say there are basically 3 steps. So 1, every creation starts with a thought. There's nothing that you're going to observe in this world that did not start with a thought. Even the creation of the world itself, God first had a thought about it. So we say the thought is the ignition key of manifesting anything into your reality. So when you hear the scripture telling us that he gave us the free will, people really do not digest what that statement means. People assume it's the actions that you do when you're doing something evil or something good. But you cannot produce an action by itself. That action is sponsored by something before it becomes an action. And that sponsor that actually leads to the action is actually a thought. So before I raise my hand, there's something that has gone on in my mind. And then it triggered my movement of this hand. So we're saying thought is everything. You create your world through your thoughts. And this free will basically means you are free as a human being created in the image of God to allow the thoughts that you wish to store in your mind. So you cannot be thinking about poverty and you're praying about wealth. You're contradicting yourself. The outcome of what is going to show up in your world are the thoughts that you hold. No matter how much you shout and pray outside there, as long as you keep holding that thought, because that is where the creation starts. So anytime you're not happy with anything in your life, I have repeatedly said that stop going outside to look for solutions. Stop blaming the government or any other person outside there. Look within, because the solutions are always there. And that is, if you're not happy, it means then you're holding thoughts which are going against what you physically want. So you just need to go back and start learning to practice to change those old thoughts with the new thoughts which you are wishing for. So that's just basically the base around how we approach this personal finance wellness. So it's broken down into 3 parts. The first part, we talk about developing the right mindset. And we gave this example whereby if I give you a laptop and I open a Word document, then I hand you over a piece of paper that has, data, numbers on it, and then ask you, can you please perform some analysis on this Word document? How far can you go with that? And everyone agreed you can't really proceed on. So the question became why? And the answer to that is, it's because you're using the wrong program. So for you to perform numbers or analysis on numbers, the right program will be Excel. So we need to remove the Word document and then instill the Excel document. So without your realization, and so many people in the world, from the moment we are born, the system is designed to instill the wrong programs in what we call the subconscious mind about money. That's why they don't teach financial literacy or financial education in school. And that's why they discourage you from teaching your children about these concepts. It's because they know at very young age, you're able to absorb things very fast. And if you get the right knowledge about how money really works, then you become a problem to them because they did not want you to get there, all right? So they created this education system that, lies to us that we are heading in the right direction. We're so programmed that we think it's working. But we saw at the end of the day, that's not correct. And for those of you who joined today and might tend to disagree with me, I want you to reflect back up country where you come from. And I want you to pick the number of retirees whom you know who had prime jobs during their career peaks, and then look at how they're faring on financially. So we did a research on that. We picked 3 counties in Kenya, and the data showed us that over 95% of these people are heavily relying on pensions and upkeep from their children. And that tells you something is very wrong. So what happens is, in the context of you being a creator, there are 2 ways how your mind can be programmed. Number 1, you can program it yourself, or number 2, someone else can program it for you without you realizing. So the unfortunate thing is that when you're born, you don't have the capacity to reason and actually ensure that you download the right programs into your mind. So others realize that that is an advantage for them to start instilling or controlling your mind to think in a certain path. And once you think in that path, they knew very well that they will always profit from you without you realizing. You'll think you're heading in the right direction based on what they've taught you. And that's why we're saying from the moment you're born, you're told to go to kindergarten, you go to primary, you go to high school, you go to tertiary, you get employed, then you're told to save for your pension, and eventually you retire broke. And this has been what has been going on across the world. So I like this definition by Albert Einstein, where he defines insanity as doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. That's what we've been doing. So we need to sit back and pull up the handbrake and ask ourselves, this is not working for us. It's not worked for fathers and our forefathers. Do we want to end up like them? If not, then what do we need to do today? And so for me, I'm really propelled and passionate about bringing this truth, which is hidden from most of you, such that I'm able to transform as many people as I can with the right knowledge about how money works. All right. So there are 2 key questions I told you should always ask yourself at any given time. And the first one is, who am I? Who am I is a question that reflects your history to the point where you are today. So you're basically questioning, out of this reality that I'm facing today, who am I? And when you do that, you tell yourself, I am responsible for making this happen, even if I'm not happy with it. So in the context of this program, we are looking at your financial wellness. So you're asking yourself, am I happy with my personal finance wellness? If the answer is no, you have answered the first question. The second question then kicks in, and that question is, who do I choose to be? So the second question, what you're doing is you're starting to take control of your life from a conscious mind point of view. In the past, you've been struggling and it has not been your fault. You were programmed to struggle that way, but you didn't know. So that went into what we call the subconscious mind. But this program now is bringing out this truth so that you're able to question what has been going on in the past. And if I'm not happy with this, what do I choose to do today to make a difference going forward? Because if you do not make that decision today and take the steps to make the change you really wish for, then the past will continue ruling over you. The same results you've experienced in the past will continue the same way. So that's just basically the framework around this. Before I delve into, just a cover up of what we covered last time, I think today I'd like to hear from one of you. Just so far, what you've learned, what you think of the program, something you'd like to share with every one of us. And there's a name that has been very consistent since I started. Mr. Walter, can you hear me? Mr. Walter Bukhari, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes, yes. So you have been very consistent from the word go. Would you mind just to share with us for about 2 minutes or 3 about so far what you think of the program? What are the lessons you've learned, the values, and so forth?
Wow. I can say a lot until the chickens come home.
Okay.
But, at times when you think you know, you discover you don't know. So
Right.
me, I can just say briefly is that I'm trying to unlearn the habits that have been planted in my thinking.
Yeah.
To always paint a picture that I was about to arrive.
Good.
But the truth is that there is a lot that I have to unlearn.
Yes.
And normally it is a bit, I'm discovering that it's never that late.
Good.
Normally there is a saying that says that you cannot teach an old dog new tricks. But I have come to discover that actually an old dog can be taught new tricks.
Thank you.
Yeah, since I started attending these sessions,
right.
There's some things I just look around myself and then I discover, or rather I've taken now note that all along I have been doing it wrong. And I believe I'll get better. By the end of this course, I'll get better. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
All right.
Oh, yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Walton. I totally agree with you. You already are a changed man, even by having realized that is so powerful. I told you everything is the mindset. And most of these things, when you sit back and start looking at the world, you'll realize how clever these people are in long time. For example, that example you just talked about, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It is something very similar to you are retiring from something. So this kind of statements to the mind shuts them down. There's no point of trying because it's too late. And that's why a lot of retirees approach me and tell me, sasa sisi tushakuwa wazee, siku yetu imeisha. They're feeling so sorry for themselves. You can even feel the energy. Not realizing that the more powerful you're holding that statement, when you're so emotional in your speaking, you're magnifying that attraction power of that thought. And that's why we said we need to move away from we're retiring from something into I am retiring into something. Just because the government told you you're supposed to retire at 60 does not mean it's the end of your world. You're not born with the government. You are born alone, you'll die alone. So in between these 2 points, everything should be about you, nothing else. You entered alone, you exit alone. In between has nothing to do with any other person other than you or any other thing other than you. So when you allow the government to tell you retire at 60, you start getting depressed the moment you reach 50. And that's when life is just starting. So the more you're approaching 60, the more you start to feel sorry for yourself. You start to panic. And I gave you an example of one of the best investors in this world called Warren Buffett. He's 95 years old, yet he's still the chairman of his company. And a very sharp person. Everything is the mindset. So when they tell you you can't teach an old dog new tricks, that's not true. The reason why that dog is not going to learn new tricks is because it has a fixed mindset. So to train that dog, make sure you dismantle that fixed mind and have it open, and it will learn very fast. It's not going to be like a child, and the reason for that is because there's so many programs which have failed, but it will start changing. So thank you so much, Bona Walter, on that. So let's get started. Now, the recap of last time, I've talked about the creator, thoughts, and mind, so I'm not going to go through about that again. So we said that this program is broken down into three parts. So the first one, we are dealing with the mind, because everything is about the mindset. Actually, if you just learned about the mind, you're ready to go. You don't even need more of me, because that first part contains 80% that is required for you to actually achieve the wealth or financial freedom, if that is what you're looking for. It's just mindset. And that is why these programs which exist outside there teaching you financial literacy, I told you, you come out of them and you're so inspired. You've learned a lot. You tell us about these things. You're told how to save, how to budget, how to do all these things. But 3 years down the line, you're still broke. You look around you and face the reality. Tell me how many people have attended all these courses they tell us about personal finance, and tell me if you can see a significant difference in their lives. Rarely. And the reason is so simple. Even those who are teaching also programmed just to teach what they were told to teach. They don't sit down to question the value of this thing. So for example, I'll tell you something. Financial education is made up of 4 components. The first one should be the mind, because the first thing you want to get into the audience or participants' mindset and try and understand what are the programs running in the subconscious mind. It is that uninstalling of the Word document and instilling the Excel document. That's the first thing. Because if you don't remove the Word document, no matter how many numbers or courses you take them, numbers will never fit or work with the Word document. And that's why all of these programs do not work, because they never address the issue of the mindset. They'll mention it somewhere, but even then they do not understand the root or the fundamentals of what is causing that problem. And that's why the first part, we have to go to psychology. We move away from personal finance, we still understand how the mind builds up things like cultures, behaviors, and such stuff. Because the moment you get to understand that, then you position yourself to actually remove the Word document and automatically have a very open mind. That's why you hear Mr. Walter saying he came to realize that he has a lot to unlearn. That was the opening of realizing, wow. So all these things I've been told are not true. As much as they may sound to be true, that's how cleverly it was crafted. And proof is there, what I've told you about those who retired. Just look at their lives and tell me if that's where you wish to be even you. And trust me, if you do not change your ways, 95% of chances you'll end up just like them. Then you start saying it's too late. You'll try to warn your children who are not going to listen to you. And your children at that particular point will be working, will not even be teaching their smaller, their young ones, your grandchildren back then. So we said it becomes a 3-generation problem passed on one from another to another. All right? So once we get to understand the mind and how it functions, we now come to the knowledge part. And in the knowledge, we talked about there are 2 types of knowledge. There's the right knowledge and there's the incorrect knowledge. So in the scripture in the book of Hosea 4 chapter 6 tells us that my people perish for lack of knowledge. It is alluding to the right knowledge. Because all of you have knowledge about money, isn't it? But how come you're struggling? So number 1, wrong mindset. 2, which you're not even aware of, and you're just going to learn as we start now going after each chapter, is that these topics they teach you a lot are also crafted to make institution more money before you, or a third party to have more money before you. So we say it is incorrect. Why should someone else earn from my effort before me? And so what I'm bringing to you is the right knowledge so that you make sure you instill that, and it moves all the way from your conscious mind to your subconscious mind, and you do these things automatically. So when we come to the right knowledge, we are saying that for you to teach people about personal finance, the first thing you're supposed to do is to show them where money comes from. Why are you teaching someone how to budget and he's broke? What value are you adding to that person? Why are you teaching someone how to save and that person is broke? What value are you adding to them? Before you get to all those things, you first need to show them where the money comes from. And so this is where now the concept of the cash flow quadrant comes in, where we talked about the 4 categories where you can earn from. And this is so important for you to understand, because once you get to understand these 4 quadrants, it becomes so obvious where the money is. So you stop wasting so much of your time and energy where you're going to struggle to make money. So we said in that cash flow quadrant, we simply put it this way. We said it looks like this. So this is E for employee, this is S for small business, B for big business, and I for investments. So we said the people who are found here are always running after the money. They're always chasing it. The people who are found here, money works for them. They don't chase it, the money chases them. It is as simple as that. I do not care how much money you make. The question is, where are you? And that is why you find most of these retirees I mentioned about who had very prime jobs. What are those jobs? Those jobs are found where? They are found here. A CEO, a captain, a pilot, a doctor, a lawyer. You've been chasing that money. That's why you wake up very early in the morning. You have to meet with other people in traffic. You work the whole day, then you meet again at traffic on your way home. You're so exhausted for years and years of working, then eventually nothing to show. So once you get to understand this and you want financial freedom, we told you this is where to focus on if you want financial freedom. Okay? If you want wealth, this is where to focus on. So once you get to understand this, then you remove a lot of energy and struggles in your life. But does this mean I shift from where I am to where I would like to be immediately? It doesn't work like that. The idea are those 2 questions I asked. Number 1, who am I? So you say, oh, I've been an employee all this time and I've realized right now I'm not going to get myself financial freedom. You've answered the first question. The second, who do I choose to be? In other words, what do I choose to create? So when you choose what to create, you can say, I want financial freedom. So what that means is I need to start now coming up with ways of how one of my leg is going to come from here and the other one is going to be here with the target of here if I'm looking for financial freedom. So that gives you even the morale to start saving because you know exactly what you're aiming for. I am aiming to invest in certain investments. I'm not just saving for the sake of saving or because my Sacco is pushing me to save. I have a logic behind why I'm doing this. I can see it. So if I'm 50 and before I used to fear I only have 10 years to go, it will propel you even to save more. You won't even mind downsizing the kind of lifestyle you live now. If you're living in a 3-bedroom house, you can even move to a 2 or 1 bedroom because you want to increase the amount you're saving towards moving yourself from this end to this end. So if both of your legs were here as the first step, then the second step, we have understood now this from the first question. Who have I been so far? Then the second step is who do I choose to be? So I want the second one to have one of the legs here and the other one here. And eventually you give yourself a timeline. In 10 years, I'll make sure both of my legs are on the right-hand side. So financial freedom and wealth, understand, is found on the right-hand side of the cash flow quadrant. So wherever you are right now, it's upon you. And if you need my help, I'm going to share my number at the end of it. Feel free to reach me out. I can help you craft a plan around how you can move from this end to this end, are well calculated. And within the next, let's say, 3 classes, we're going to cover something called goals and goal setting. You're going to see how this merges with what we're currently doing now as a framework of how now you can plan your future depending on what you'd like to achieve. So this is very, very key for you to understand. So once you get to understand that, then we moved on to what we call the 5 keywords that are very important. Now that we know where the money is, we want to combine this money with the previous discussion around the mind to see how we are programmed, to actually evaluate and see this is the reality of what really happens to us. Okay? So we are saying when you're on the left-hand side, you're basically trying to ride a bicycle on top of water or on a swimming pool. You'll just drown, no matter how hard you try. So the left-hand side people work so hard. They're chasing that money. The right-hand side people work smart. Money works for them. They attract money from where they are. And I told you, these are the people always playing golf. These are the people who can sleep the whole day, and you call them lazy. Because you're programmed to believe someone who's not working is lazy. What you don't realize is you've been programmed to put a lot of sweat. When you sweat a lot is when you believe you're doing a lot of work. Last time when I was coming here, I come from Mombasa Road. Just before you get to this road called Haile Selassie, there's an uphill. And I saw these 2 people pulling a cart, mkokoteni, and they're going with this pace. Ule wa nyuma alikuwa ameshikilia hivi anasukuma, pulling himself like this. Na ule wa mbele, it was so heavy, he actually had to turn and face where they're coming from, and he was using his back to push it. You could just see drip of sweats from each one of them just dropping and dropping and dropping. How come that person is not successful financially if working hard is true? These are the things we don't sit down to ask ourselves because we are so conditioned to even see the reality in front of us. But now we understand it is not our fault because that's how God created our minds as creators. So since we were kids, we didn't know these people crafted certain things and instilled them in us, unfortunately, which worked against us. And that's what I told you last time. That's why they'll come and create any product they want to, and then they use psychology on us, and then they create an existing company or an industry that never existed, which we don't even need. And I keep giving this example of makeup. It's now become a, I don't know, billion industry. And it's interesting. I was asking a friend of mine who can walk out of the house without makeup. And she's a God-fearing woman who goes to church. So I asked her, has it ever dawned on you that you're actually correcting God by putting all that makeup? You're basically telling God, you created me well, but at least hiyo ungeweka hii na hii na hivi vitu unaweka hizi. That's what you're basically saying. Because if you're proud of how you're created, why would you need these other extra things? You'd rather have makeup than stuff. It's the programming. That's how they build these industries that we don't even require to live or to exist. And then when you don't have these products, you become so stressed. They're waiting for you in the other corner with these medicines. They keep coming up. So if you're not controlling your thoughts, if you're not in control of your thoughts, trust me, there's someone else who you do not know is controlling you. That's why Africa is not free. As much as we keep celebrating this independence, we are not. They walked away physically, but they control us in our minds, from the education system to everything. That's why we have IFC, we have these world banks, all those things were set up. All right. So anyway, After learning that, we went to the 5 keywords. So I said there are 5 very important words that you need to learn. So the first one was income, 2 was expense. You know what those things are. Then we handled assets and liabilities, and we gave the definitions, a different definition from what our financial institutions teach us. And basically, we said in a very simple way, an asset is anything that puts money into your pocket. It's as simple as that. So as long as money is coming into your pocket, it does not matter whatever it is, that's an asset. And anything that is removing money from you, that's a liability. So once you get to understand these 2 terms, you don't even need to be educated. If you want financial freedom, then what should you be focusing on? Something that's removing money from your pocket or something that is putting money into your pocket? And the answer is so simple. Of course, it's something that is putting money, because if it's putting money, it will be a pile and pile and pile and pile. So naturally, from what we learned as creators through the psychology, we are created as creators and we're given this mind, and creation starts from a thought. We need to shift our minds from liabilities to assets. We should be thinking of assets more than liabilities. That's the message here. So we are programmed from the moment we were born to focus on liabilities. And that's why I told you they do not want our children to learn these things. Why? They understood very well. Children learn from observation. So every time your child sees you going to the shop, they see you buying things. The message is that money is for removing. When they listen to TV, radio, adverts, and all these things, nunua, 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 buy, buy, that's the message, the consumption. That's what we bombard them with. And so the subconscious starts now connecting money to spending. And that's why we are a consuming nation. Actually, the entire Africa is. We are not a production at all. That's why they can even create any industry they want there and bring things to us. We'll just consume, because that's how we're wired to do. To a point where even I told even a toothpick, this one here I'm holding, this toothpick, made in China. And we have graduates in Africa. And we are so busy making a lot of noise outside there. I see Kenyans talking about, we are so good, no country can beat us, you know, in the context of social media. Do we even own any social media ourselves? So these are the realities we need to start facing if we want to ensure that we are the last generations who are going to go through this, and ensure that our children get the right foundation so that we instill the right concepts about how money works into their subconscious mind. If we do that, Africa within no time is going to change. That's why we produce almost 70% of the natural resources, yet we're the poorest. It's all about the mindset. So when you're not in control of your mind, understand someone else is. Na yeye yako hapo kukusaidia wewe, ukae ukijua hivyo. So the first thing then we say, out of these 4 words, it's important for us now to be focusing on what we call assets. Then we say assets, now that we want to focus on assets, assets are broken into 2. So we have what we call cash flowing assets and non-cash flowing assets. Non-cash flowing assets are assets that increase in value with time, but they do not generate money for you. So if I buy an asset today and I sell it in 10 years, like land that is just sitting idle, I'll make a profit with the net. That's a non-cash flowing asset. However, if I buy that land and I start doing some farming around it and I make some money maybe every 3 months by selling onions or whatever it is, then it starts generating money for me on a regular time of interval. So I have converted a non-cash flowing asset into a cash flowing asset. And so what I'd like to do, ladies and gentlemen, is I want you to start moving your minds. Just keep focusing on cash flowing assets and you will never go wrong. And by the end of today, you are going to see how powerful this thing is. That's a promise I'm making you. All right. So that's the part here. And then we went ahead and saw what we call the 3 cash flow programs. So we drew this thing, which will quickly allow me to just go through it again, because it's very much connected to the next topic. So those 5 words, in summary, this is what happens. Let me get this. So you start, this is how you draw it, huh? So for those of you who've done accounting or finance, you will relate to this thing I'm drawing here because we call it in finance language, the three financial statements. So here we have income, here we have expenses. So this top part is what we call the income statement. Then here we have assets, and here we have liability. So we call this the balance sheet. That's the second financial statement. So the idea was here, once you realize where the money is, which is coming from the four cash flowing, the cash flow quadrant, ESBI, we say that from the moment you're a child, you are only exposed to buying things. And that's why your child by the age of 3, when you're leaving the house, atakwambia, mom, dad, ukirudi jioni unilete. Understand the child has already been damaged. The word document ishawekwa ndani. That's why they're asking for you to buy. They're not asking you to invest. So we want to change that narrative and get our children to start asking us to invest at that same age. When I ask this question to a lot of people who are trained, would you be surprised if your child asked you to invest? Ukitoka asubuhi, 90% of the people laugh at that thought. Why are you laughing? Because you're so conditioned, you don't even realize that mtoto hawezi jiweza of it. You've been conditioned to believe it's people like I who studied finance and all these things that can only understand it. Can't you see? What they're trying to do is make sure that you don't even touch that book yourself because you believe others understand it better than you are. So you rather bring your 40 years savings to a person you don't know just because he has a title called a profession. That's where you get scammed. And when we get to the investment part, that is going to be the first rule I'm going to give you. Never invest in anything you cannot explain to your son or your daughter. Never. And if you follow just that one, you're going to avoid a lot of risks. So from the moment they're born, when the money comes in here, basically we're talking about there are three ways of how money flows. Every one of us has one of these three programs. You cannot be outside this. Every one of us has one of these three programs. And this is what determines your relationship with money. If you've ever heard people say cash flow is king, this is what they mean. So from the moment our children are born, by denying us or telling us not to teach them about money, they knew by default, mtoto atakuwa na pesa, sisi tunachukuaga. What they observe us is, we go to the shop, we buy. Money in, money out. Money in, money out. That's why I told you by 3 years, that's telling you, kirudi jioni unilete. So we call this the cash flow program 1. So we said the first 7 years, by you accepting that it is wrong to teach children about money, this is what you did to your children. This is what was done to you and I. So anytime we think about money, we're just thinking about spending, 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 in, out, in, out, in, out. Now, from 7 until you start working, we said the concept of these people called celebrity, wanakwambia money is just not for spending, but what to spend on specifically. And those things that celebrities show us or bombard our young ones or teenagers, preteens and teens are nothing other than what we're calling liabilities. So we said if it's a phone, usinunue item, nunua iPhone. If it's a car, don't go for Vitz, go for BMW, whatever it is. It's programmed again. So when these people get to the age of getting loans, like now for your Sacco and all this, once they get the money, these are the programs, it will automatically come up. And I shared my experience with you guys, how I really messed myself before I learned these things. So these liabilities, like a car, you start fueling. Fueling money natoke hapa. So we call this cash flow program 2. And then the last one now was this one, whereby I'll put it in red. Money comes in first, and the first thing that comes to your mind is buying a cash flowing asset. Once you buy a cash flowing asset, this asset will start generating money for you here, which again now comes back here. So those are the three programs that run or are programmed in every one of us. Now, like I mentioned, I do not care how much money you're making. As long as you have one of these two, you're set for doom. And this does not care how educated you are or whether you're not educated. It's about the mindset. That is why we're finding that these retirees, once the cash flow stops coming in from this part here, they are done. These people who are found here pay the most tax. The money they make, the government goes away with more than 50%. When you think about it, it's actually 65. Because one, watakwambia ile unakatwa kwa mshahara, that's 30, 35 depending on where you are. Hebu enda supermarket leo ununue vitu alafu angalia receipt hapo chini imeandikwa nini. Utaona VAT, you see all those things. Hiyo mafuta unatumia kwenda nayo kazini. It's almost 35. Sorry, 65%. But the people who are found on this side, if you're wise enough, you can even not pay tax legally. They understand something that you don't and something they do not want you to know. And that's even financial literacy. They don't even teach these things because in those who teach do not even understand it. The wisest, wealthy people understand how money works. So once this happens to us as children, we are set for life. That's what I talked about, being controlled without you realizing. You put on your suit, you have this title, unaona umefika. You heard what Walter said. Alikuwa anajua ashafika. But now looking at the so far we've reached, realizing like, hey, apana, let me pull up the brakes. Something is not right here. So the goal for me and this program we're running is to make sure that your mindsets move from 1, 2 to 3. That's all you need. And you're set. How do you do that? It's what now we are coming to next. Okay? So now, I want us to look at these two topics. Number one, we want to compare spending and saving. They teach us in financial literacy to save what is left. So the question becomes, what are they asking you to do first? Or what are the programs they instill in your subconscious mind without you realizing what is going on? When they tell you to save what is left, what are they encouraging you to do first? Please write on the comment section. I'd like to see your answers or your thought process. What are they asking you to do first? Anyone, please, on the chat? When they tell you to save what is left, there's something else they're asking you to do first. Then you save what is left. So let me say this. Exactly. Thank you, Miriam. So they are encouraging you to spend first. Na si tumetoka kuangalia those three cash flowing programs. So even those who are teaching financial literacy are blind to this truth because they've not studied psychology to understand the hidden of how the mind works and how it absorbs certain information. So what they're encouraging you to do first is do what? Save. Save after spending. Kwa hivyo, when you think about it deep inside, it means if nothing is left after spending, it's okay. Because I'm told to save what is left. Sasa kama kuna kitu imebaki nda save nini? So you become comfortable. 1 year goes by, you're like, mi bado ni young. I'll still have a number of years to work. You work 2 years, 3 years. That's why a lot of people within 6 years wanakaga siku moja, reality check just hits them. I've been working for X number of years and I have nothing to show. That's why a lot of people are so scared of losing their jobs. It's a condition that you didn't even realize was being instilled in your mind. So this is so dangerous, okay? So whenever you receive money, and this is the question I want you to ask yourself where you are. Assume now I come and give you 10,000 shillings. What is the first thing that is going to come up in your mind? I'd like to see some of the answers. I give you 10,000. What is the first thing that is going to come to your mind? A few answers, please. Nimekuja tu nimekutumia M-Pesa 10,000, 50,000. What is the first thing that will come to your mind? And be honest. Please be honest. Treat myself. Thank you, Anna. That's true. Okay? Lipa deni, spend it. Yes. Yes. spend. So thank you. I appreciate those comments coming in. So that points out to what your subconscious mind is programmed to do around money. Because we are going that first natural thought that comes in. And we say that first reaction, we define the subconscious mind as that part of your mind that reacts. It does not think. So if the first thing you're thinking about is spending, it shows you the programs you have. So even if you're a CEO making 10 million, siku ile hiyo kazi itaisha, ni pesa tu itakuwa inatoka because you're wired just to be spending. And of course, you cannot be earning 10 million and you're living in a 20,000 house rent. You want to maintain your status quo of living, let's assume in Kitusuru, wherever it is. Ulipe rent 1 year, we want a, hey, pesa imeshuka kabisa, because you're wired just to spend. You're that what document we're talking about. So from where you're seated, really analyze, because if spending is what comes first, then it means out of those 3 cash flowing programs we talked about, uko number 1. And I've told you it's not about how much money you make. It is not about your education or how well you knowledge you are, or whether you live in the village or you live up country or diaspora. It does not care. The mind only knows to output what is programmed in. So that is a wake-up call for you, that I need to move myself from 1 to 3. We need to come up with a way, a plan of how we're going to move from cash flowing program 1 to 3. And that is where the practical application, we talked about 3 steps. Number 1, the right mindset. 2nd, the right knowledge. And 3, we talked about the right practice. So the right practice is where now Telepost Sacco is going to come in. And we're going to talk about that much later on. So it's going to aid you to start moving your mind, your subconscious mind, from this program we're calling cash flowing program 1, na ishuke kuja mpaka kwa 3. Because the moment it comes to 3, you will never struggle again. Just like you walk, you're not even thinking, but you're walking. For those of you with experience of driving a car, you don't even think, you drive it, it's become something natural. Those who can ride bicycle, bodabodas, whatever it is, things you do just naturally without thinking. But it took time before you perfected that skill. So the same thing is going to happen here, because we have to unprogram what was there, and that needs a repeated practice over and over until we override that wrong programs which is working against us. So that by itself tells you. So from these answers you've come up with here, you can actually tell yourself where you are. So the beauty here is we know where we want to go. So far what we've done is we've asked that first question. Where? Who am I? So who am I? I'm a creator who has created this program called Cash Flowing Program 1 in my subconscious mind. Of course, you didn't know it was being done until you. That's why I told you, when you're not in control, someone else is controlling you. And there's nothing as beautiful as being in control of anything. So we want to take out that power from those people who've been controlling us, and we want to hold them in our arms. And our arms are telling us this is the direction. The direction is supposed to be Cash Flowing Program 3. So you can choose to do it individually, but I'll encourage most of us, let's join that right practice. That way, because most of us are programmed the wrong way. We walk the journey together. It's easier when you're many of us trying to walk this journey, because sometimes it can become very lonely. You look around you and everyone is so programmed to be three or to be one. You're trying to speak to people, no one is even, they actually look at you like you're crazy. You start talking about the subconscious, they look at you and they wonder, and you hear in those talks, I've experienced it enough. But these days now people realize what I was talking about, because they can see from my actions and how my life is progressing on, how I'm teaching my children all these things. So let's take control. It makes sense for you to be in control of your future. If you're on the left-hand side of that cash flow quadrant, you don't have control. But on the right-hand side, you have control. And that's the beauty of understanding that. It's wonderful. I told you I teach children about this concept. My students do not say, I want to be a doctor. They say, I want to own a fleet of clinics spread across East Africa, and I can become a doctor in one of them. I just don't want to be a pilot. I want to own an airline and become a captain in one of them. That's the kind of language my students are starting to talk. And I'm talking about primary children. And you're going to see it once we do the free classes for your children when they close school in April. It's that transformation that we want over and over. And we come up with ways of how we'll keep repeating that until it is ingrained inside the subconscious mind. So there's this statement here in summary of this graph or this slide you can see. It simply says that do not save what is left after spending, because this is what they're teaching us. This is what they're pushing in financial literacy. This will never, ever work out for you. The idea is spend what is left after savings. And let me demonstrate this to you in a practical way that will make sense. A quick one. So we want to look at those two statements and then apply them. We just use a bit of common sense in them and let's see what happens, okay? So we assume here we have the cash flow quadrant, okay? So here they're asking us first to, so here basically we are earning from this point of view. So whether you're here, here, or here. Now, when you earn, what they teach you to do first is they ask you to spend. All right? And then whatever is left is what they're asking you to do what? To save. So let's assume you're earning 100K here. So your money gets inside. What have they wired your subconscious mind to do? To spend. So you start number one. Assume I have rent or mortgage. Okay. Bills, utility bills, rent, water, electricity, you name it. You want to do groceries or shopping for the house. Okay. So you reach 10. If let's assume by this time you have like 5,000 left from this 100K, would you agree with me that naturally your mind is going to ask itself, because remember what you're told, save what is left. So they're encouraging you to spend. So in the 5,000, there's nothing that is motivating you to go save. So your mind will just autopilot because of those programs since you're a child. Spend, spend. So naturally, you're going to ask yourself, what else can I buy? 5,000, let me treat myself. And before you know it, all this is gone. That is why so many of us in Africa are always looking forward to advance. In some countries like UK, they pay you twice every month, every 2 weeks. Yeah? In our country in Kenya, we're paid monthly after 1 month. But now this thing of advance has become so big. I think we need to take that route of UK, where we are paid twice. This is the danger about this thing. So at the end of it, you have nothing to save. Then you say, next year I'll start saving. Same thing repeat itself. Then the third, you say, now I have to be very serious. You even now start getting excited about resolutions in December. You're all getting excited. You form this, you call them what? These groups in Facebook, savings challenge. You come up with all these things. And you get so fired. The first one, you've really put your 10,000. Now you're on the right spot. You think like that. By the time you're getting to April, you're back to your old habit. Because the subconscious, we said, is 95% of the entire mind. So it needs time for you to reprogram what was there for years. So these people eventually end up not saving. That is why after 7 or 8 number of years, you sit down and ask yourself, nimekuwa nikifanya kazi hizi miaka zote. I've been working for all these years. What do I have to show? And you can't show, you have nothing to show completely. All right? So this is the danger around following this type of program, which is what they're encouraging you, even in financial literacy, as they teach you, by telling you to save what is left. So this other end, we are saying that the first thing we need to do is save. And once we save, then whatever is left is what we're supposed now to spend. All right? So if you tell yourself, I'll be saving, let's assume 25,000 from this 100,000 here. If you're earning, let's say even here 1,000. Then this means what you're left to spend with here is 75,000. So we say the disposable income that you have at hand to spend is 75 here. But here you had 100. So when you follow this model, it forces you now to be putting this money aside. If you don't have the discipline, this is when you structure your Sacco to actually be cutting that amount. You channel your salary here. At the moment that 100 enters, automatically 25 is chopped off, so that the only money you can access is 75%. So you notice that this person here, the lifestyle, if you observe their lifestyle, and this person here, this one will be appearing to be doing very well compared to this person here. But this is it. So what we need to do is we need to shift our mindsets if we want to go to cash flow program 3, such that if I tell you I'm going to send you 10,000, the first thing that should come to your mind is saving, not spending or treating yourself ama kulipa deni. That's the first thing that should be coming. Even if you're in debt, that should not be the first thing that should come to your mind. The first thing should be, what cash flow asset can I put some of this money to? That's the secret. And I've told you, this does not even need you to be educated at all. That's the secret. All right? So you can see the power around what I am talking about here. Extremely, extremely powerful. Imagine if you had learned this thing in primary. How far do you think you'll have gone? So this is the right model or approach. And so those of us who first thought comes into the mind is spending. We need to start watching. We need to start watching, because that is who we have been. But who do we choose to be going forward? The second question. What do we choose to create for ourselves? If we choose to continue struggling, then let's continue spending with the old model. Don't even think, continue just being who you are. It's naturally new. But if you want to experience something different, you have to change your thought process. And that thought process changing, the feedback of whether it's changing, it's that first instincts that come once you receive money. So you want to start paying attention to that from a conscious point of view, from a conscious mindset. Because remember, I told you, if you look at these two diagrams here, the subconscious is this big. It basically contains 95% of your mind. And then here, we have the conscious, which is just 5%. So this 95, this subconscious, is your natural habit. This is your culture. This is your behavior. This is your character. So it's the part of your mind that does not think, it only reacts. But the conscious is the part that thinks before it acts. It tries to reason, critical thinking, all those things you call them. So anytime you're not happy with something in your life, it is the conscious that is analyzing this outcome of your life and it's saying, I don't like this. But why is it not liking it? That's why I told you it has nothing to do with the president or the government or the economy or whatever, the wars going on. It all has to do with something within you. And that within you is what now we're saying is the subconscious. And the answer is very simple. I am struggling because the conscious, the subconscious is wired to do the opposite of what I want now. I'm struggling to save. Why? Because the subconscious was wired to spend. It's as simple as that. So now you start paying attention. And because as a creator, you create by the first step of thinking, which is a thought. The secret is to keep thinking about cash flowing asset over and over. That's why you see people even having on their rooms or in your wallpaper, you have something, a cash flowing asset that you'd like to attain. You can have a picture of a house that you want or a flat where you're going to rent. Because every time you see that picture, you ignite that thought in your conscious mind. So the more you start thinking about that, what happens is, and I drew this for you guys, is that this starts going up and this starts coming down this way. The more you keep that thought, it keeps going up and this keeps coming down. If we ignore, it starts going back to the normal and this goes back to where it was. That is why persistency is key. Persistent will always pay. As long as you're persistent in something, it will always pay. And this is why it's so important for us Africans to realize that we were lied to, not to educate our children about this concept. So if you start from a very young age, children absorb these things like a sponge so quick. So we make sure that we give them the right knowledge so that the right programs about money are instilled in their subconscious mind. And that's why I told you, have you ever seen any Jew struggling? Never. In this very old country of ours we live in, have you seen any Somalis struggling? Unless they want to. They have learned how to cooperate, not compete like you and I. And our country is just going to tukiangalia hivi na macho. That repeated thing, they've mastered it. So let's be wise. So what happens is the more you think about it, this keeps going up, 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 this keeps coming down. Once they get to a point of equilibrium, it starts becoming easy. So now it flows quickly and this drops quickly. Now this new one replaces. Now you have reprogrammed the old subconscious and now this becomes the new subconscious. At this point, we say that you have taken control of your life because the thoughts that you wanted for yourself is what you've allowed to get programmed in the subconscious. And once it's there, you don't even need to think. It will just become something you do naturally, effortlessly. So when you see most of us struggling financially, it tells you what our subconscious mind has been done to. When you see other nations not struggling financially, it goes back to what has been programmed. That's why I told you everything is the mindset, right? Okay, so that's what this slide was about. That's why I was saying here, this is why most of us, including our country, is a consumer nation. We are programmed, kabisa, 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 and we need to undo this. You know, right now, there's a very big problem just brewing up in this country of ours. It is so big, it's going to explode after about 10 years. Take some time in Nairobi and go to Nyayo House and see the age group of people who are queuing there to get passports. Kumeja, the youth. There are so many of them. Why? Because they feel hopelessness in this country. So they want to go look for greener pastures. What is happening? We are starting to lose skills, talent. Zinaanza kutoka. Today, we're even exporting gatemen. And you hear the government people talking, tunawatafutia kazi mpaka nje. Who is thinking about this country in 10 years' time? We are busy educating them in universities here, then we're telling them to go work outside there. That vacant has started. That vacuum has started. And you're going to see what's going to happen in this country in the next 10 years. It's going to be very bad. And we have a whole ministry of planning and I don't know what. And that's why I tell you, it's so important for you to realize yourself consciously. And once you understand that, you make sure that those people you care about are on board with you. Because we're heading in a very, very bad direction, very bad direction. You hear of countries attracting, human resource from other nations, and people think it's a joke. It is coming very soon. Let's continue doing what we're doing. So let's be wise and start teaching our children these things, because the future we're heading, employment, I mentioned to you, is shrinking. Artificial intelligence, it's taking over. Most of the jobs will be taken up by machines. Yet we are busy here increasing universities and colleges, teaching courses that are so irrelevant to the future. And I'm telling you, one of the jobs that is going to go away, I keep telling people and they think I'm just bluffing. Accountants, watch this space. Not to instill fear for you, that's not my intention. My intention is uanze kujipanga mapema. Because I'm guaranteeing you machines are going to do that. Drivers, pilots, one day aeroplanes will lift themselves and land themselves. Right now, the work of the pilot and the captain is just take off and landing. The moment they level up there, everything else is autopilot. The plane takes itself to wherever it's going. We are going there because God created us not to have any limit. That's why Eliud alituambia no human is limited. And people just say it for the sake, they don't understand it. There are people who are pushing themselves to the edge because as a creator, you have no limit. You are there busy thinking of business, and what you're doing is you're thinking of opening up a shop. There's someone else who is created like you in the same image of God, and him is thinking of moving people from this planet to another planet or to Mars. Just think about that difference. To the mind, it doesn't care. It is what you think. It is what you store there. Why are you limiting your thinking to only a kiosk? It is upon you. It has nothing to do with someone else or God or whatever. It is He has given you that power. The reason why you're doing that is because you're conditioned not to see things in a bigger picture. I told you education system is structured to teach us how to think, what to think instead of how to think. Stop limiting yourself. Stop limiting your beliefs. You have everything it takes to turn around your life. It is just a mindset thing. Please. Sasawa. So let's go to the next slide. Now here, I want us to discuss something. You can see from the screen, I have what we're calling assets and savings. Okay? Now, I want us to take three groups of people. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to take an example of our CEO, Madam Miriam. And I'm going to take our diaspora lady who never misses, Mary. And then the rest of us are going to represent the third group. Okay? So for us, this is how I'm going to do it. So we are the spenders. So this is the rest of us, okay? Then here we have our CEO, Madam Miriam. And then here we have one of our members from diaspora, Madam Mary. So we have a set of 3 groups of people. Please pay attention to this, okay? Because this is really going to be an eye-opener to you. So assume all of us have attended university together and we graduate at the same time, all right? Then all of us somehow get employed. And the starting salary for us is 100,000, all of us. Okay? Now, let's start with us. We have been programmed to be spenders. It's what I talked about, save what is left. So we have been encouraged to spend fast. So the moment the money hits our accounts, we start, if it's mortgage you're paying, if it's rent you're paying, we start now removing money, buying things, spending, consuming. And we have seen that by the end of the month, we have nothing. So by the end of the first year, what we have is 0 in terms of asset value, or let's assume money in your bank or your Sacco. Okay? Now, Madam CEO has been programmed to be a saver. Us as spenders, okay? So before she starts working, she knows I'll be earning 100,000. So she says, because I've been taught to save, saving is good for my future, I'll be keeping 20,000 aside every month without fail. So that means the disposable income that our CEO is going to have is 80,000. This is the amount he's going to use for spending. Because the first thing she has done is that she has set aside 20,000. I hope you're together up to that point. Now, if she saves consistently without fail, how much money will she have by the end of the first year? She will have 240,000. Okay? Let's go to year 2. All of us 0. Okay? Our CEO 240 now, the second year, assuming everything remains constant. Year 3, again, mtindo wetu ni ule ule 2-0. Haya, hapa nayo tuko nayo, our CEO another 240. Now, if someone comes to our homes and they look at how we live, and then they go to the CEO's house and they look at how she lives, this one's in pink shows the disposable income. Disposable income means the money you have at your hands for spending. So remember, for us, because we've not been taught anything around financial education, once we receive the money, we just spend. That's why I'm saying we earn 100 here, and the disposable is the 100. Our CEO earns 100, but she sets aside 20. So what she's left with, which is the disposable income, is the 80. Okay? So let's do this up to around 4 years, and let's see what we end up with. So 4, this is 0, another 240. So if you do this for 10 years, this is 0, 10 years, this is 240. Now I want you to notice something very interesting. If by the end of the year, let's assume the CEO has been saving with this Sacco and they pay some interest, do you expect that interest to be returned to these savings, or do you expect Madam CEO to spend it? And because of time, I'll quickly just give you the answer. The answer is that she's going to spend it. Why? Because she does not have a clear goal or plan of what she wants to do with this money. Yana save too for the sake of it, which is what most of you do. Right now, I just walked in here and asked the Madam CEO to share with me a report around the training we had for the top savers. And half of them, based on the questions I'd sent around to be answered, I can tell they have no clue what they want to do with the money they're saving with. That's a very dangerous path to walk. And you're going to understand that very well when we cover what I said, goal and goal setting. It's going to come out very well at that point. So what happens here is in this first year, as all of us now have more money than she has, we can decide to be going for fun activities as a group. But for her, she can't come because she locked some amount on the side. So she's watching us enjoying life. And as natural as a human, that builds in her. So by the end of the year, when the interest is paid, atajambia acha nirudishie mwili yangu pole pia. Mwaka imeisha. And know in December is when everyone is happy, everyone is excited, you want to spoil your children. That's the trap you're going to fall into. Another trap she might fall into here is she can save for about 3 years and then she decides just to do something. Leo pesa ishe mara moja. Let me go for a trip somewhere. Na inaisha hivyo akiona na macho. Back to square one savings again. Okay? So we say, let's assume now at this point, kazi zetu ziishe. Hapa. What happens to us here? Kimeturamba immediately. No savings, no nothing. All of us. This time is when we start remembering we had a CEO who used to save. So tunaanza kumpigia simu atusaidie na deni, vitu kama hizo. Typical, okay? Now, if you look at the graph of our CEO, you will realize that every year she's always saving to 40, to 40, to 40. So we can draw a parallel line to indicate the wealth that she makes every year. It's a parallel line, meaning it's constant. It's constant. It's constant. Okay? Now, I want us to move now to Madam Mary. Now, Madam Mary has been taught to focus on cash flowing assets. Remember, everything is the mindset. So Madam Mary has been programmed to focus on cash flowing assets. So year one, she says, before I start working, I want to pick a cash flowing asset. That's going to be my goal. By the end of the first year, I need to have acquired one cash flowing asset, which can start generating money for me. So what does she do? She comes up with this idea and says, I'll buy a car and then convert it to be an Uber or Bolt, whatever taxi you want to call it. So she does the calculation and realizes for me to buy the smallest car, pay for insurance, import it, pay all these duty frees, whatever it is, it's going to cost me 400,000. So she already knows by the end of the first year, I need 400,000. So she says, well, let me start now saving the same way as the CEO does. How much does the CEO save? 20,000. So by the end of the year, I will have 240. But I need 400. That gap is so huge. For me to have this cash flowing asset, I need 400,000. And if I save the same way as the CEO, I will have 240. So what does that naturally push Mary to do? It naturally pushes Mary to increase her savings. So she says, I'll start saving 30,000 instead of 20, which means now her disposable income now comes down to 70,000. So as she saves this 30,000 every month, by the end of the first year, Madam Mary is going to have 360,000. Okay? So if you have 360,000, sorry. No. Yes, you'll have 360,000. Now, if you pay her some dividends or interest, atarudishia mwili yake pole? And the answer is no. Why? Because she still has a gap of 40,000 to reach the 400 which she wanted. So naturally, when that dividend comes, she will focus on putting it right into this fast cash flowing asset. And if that does not work out well, now she can borrow to top up. Okay? So let's assume she's able now to make that 400,000. So we say by the end of the first year, she will have zero in her account, but she'll have had the fast cash flowing asset one. So in the second year, let's assume this Uber starts generating 2,000 net per day. So every day, 2,000, 2,000. In 1 month, that's 60,000. Times 12, that becomes 720,000. Can you see she has already surpassed our CEO here, who has a total of 480. But the beauty is she continues saving for the second cash flowing asset. So here she'll be saving for cash flowing asset 2. So in the third year, assuming things remain constant, she'll have the 720K plus another 720K from the second cash flowing asset. She repeats this process in the fourth year. So now you have 720 for asset 1, 720 for cash flowing asset 2, and 720 for cash flowing asset 3. Now I want you to project that one until 10 years and tell me how this graph is going to look at. We have seen the one for Madame Marianne is a constant line, EV. Can you see something happening with our Madame Mary here? It is forming what we're calling a pyramid shape. The wealth is expanding like this, like a pyramid. Yasiyo imekaa hivi. So in 10 years time, if all of us tupoteze kazi, do you ever expect Madame Marianne to feel any difference? This is where now psychology of who you are as a creator and the thoughts that are running in your subconscious mind results in your financial situation or position as it is today. So when I hear people say, save, 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 and you ask them, why are you saving? It's good to save. You've not answered me. Why are you saving? A lot of people, again, through the financial literacy teachings that are going on, the heart of it is save, 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 save. But why are you saving? If you do not have a goal of why you're saving, then you're saving for the sake. You're saving because it feels good. You're saving because you're told to save and you believe it's going to work out well. That's why we have our retirees up country who are saving and today they're struggling financially. So what's the secret here? The secret is, as a creator, what should I just focus on? The first thing you need to focus on and always are cash flowing assets. Because once you identify these cash flowing assets, then savings become naturally. You don't even need to be told by anyone. You're not even going to feel the pain. Sisi huku hata tukienda Dundama tufanye nini, you're not going to feel it. Because you have a focus, you have a very clear goal of where you're heading. That's why companies have vision. So the person who's saving for the sake of it can be swayed easily. Unaona mtu amesave almost 12 months and then it takes just 1 week, pesa yote imeisha. No goal. And even if the goal was to go for holiday, okay, you've gone, you've had your fun. What value has that added other than happiness? And that's why in our last episode we said, let's start first by focusing on building a few cash flowing assets. And let's not start with something big because we want to reprogram first the mind until it becomes something we do naturally. We save for the first cash flowing asset, we save for the second cash flowing asset, and once we get to that point, now we're happy. Let's assume the third one. So we have 3 cash flowing assets. Now you can tell yourself, let me use the savings coming from this first cash flowing asset to purchase liabilities. The secret, ladies and gentlemen, is make sure any liabilities you're going to purchase going forward, that funding is coming from a cash flowing asset. Such that once you purchase that liability, the cash flowing asset will continue generating money for you. And as I'm repeating again, when you're starting, don't dream too big. Start small. Because when you start big and it collapses, psychologically it's going to affect you. So we want to start with baby steps. Because the idea for starting with those baby steps is to reprogram the wrong programs in our subconscious mind. And as we perfect in it, as we continue pushing that persistency, we start now increasing the intensity of it. So you can tell your children, this year, no holiday. We are going to focus, all of us, on cash flowing assets. Next year, no holiday, a second one. Third one, one room on this. Sasa, ile ya kwanza tulitengeneza 2024, let's say from that for holiday. And it becomes very easy. It becomes very easy. So the goal at the end of this training will be to onboard you guys to a product that is going to help you save towards a cash flowing asset of your choice. So the goal will be every year, you have to set up one cash flowing asset that you want to achieve at the end of the year. I'm not going to talk more about that. I'm going to speak about that later on when the time comes. But that is the goal behind this. You will never go wrong, Naeem. Ever, ever, ever. So this is one of the levels of financial education. It's made up of 4 components. The first one is the mindset. The second one is the creation and expansion. Because we also need to know how to expand what we are building up. And then number 3 is the preservation. How do you preserve what you have built up, not collapse? Especially given what we call inflation. And then the last thing is distribution. There are 4 elements of financial education. This second part is what they call financial literacy. So they teach you just a component of the entire thing. How do you preserve your wealth? So in the preservation, we start talking about inheritance. What is inheritance? Why do we fight about inheritance? There are clever ways of going about it where there's not going to be any friction. But that is beyond the scope of what you're trying to learn here. So the point here I'm pushing towards is, as a creator, the answer is right in front of you. What should you be focusing on? And the answer is very simple. Here, cash flowing asset. Every year I'll make one. And as you're doing that, if you have a supporting spouse, you do it together. Children, the same thing. And I'm going to briefly talk about something we're building that is going to aid our children to start developing the program 3. We've realized this damage is so bad that we are creating a tool which we're going to release in April, where children can start now practicing these concepts through you as parents, and us at the back of the mind to aid them. It's built up using psychology and what we call behavioral, in a way that it will naturally start moving them from those default of program 1 to 2, and it will naturally push them towards 3. It's something very big. I'll briefly mention that if time allows me today. So that's basically what this part was all about. And that's why you hear me talk about assets versus savings. So I tell SACCOs, you don't even need to look for more members. You can focus with the ones that you have and then create products that are going to aid them accumulate cash flowing assets. And those cash flowing assets come back to the SACCO. So just like that is very similar like bringing another member. And I am telling you, the first 10 or 20 who are going to pick what I'm teaching here, next year nitakuwa hapa. You just listen to the testimonies that are going to come through. I've been doing this for 3 years with other SACCOs, and the testimonials are just expanding and expanding. This approach is changing how financial literacy education, whatever they call it, is being done, because it's opening up the truth of what was hid from us. And once this truth is out, it's just a matter of applying it. It's not rocket science. That is why every nation is coming into a country, they are taking over. It's because they understand these things. I told you Indians came when you're getting independence. They control 80% of manufacturing when we are busy focusing on being educated and being employed. Somalis have come now, they've even overpowered Indians to a point where now Indians are now trying to collaborate with them because they become irrelevant. The Somalis are so smart in business to a point even the world is fearing them. So the Indians realize because they're smarting us, the best thing we can do is collaborate. Where are we? Still busy focusing on education. You're selling assets to take your children to do a course which will be relevant in the next 3 years. And then you start complaining to them outside. Keep your assets to yourself. These days you can do online courses which are very cheap. They don't have to go to these buildings. COVID taught us we can learn everything just like I'm teaching you now. Keep your assets, add more, stop it, please. You're just making this institution rich and rich and rich. If I wanted to do medicine today and I go to Nairobi University and they tell me there's no more space, they'll tell me, however, me, I wanted medicine. Why are you giving me these other options? This is what I've always wanted to do. Why? Because for them it's about money. It's a money-making machine. So be wise. Don't just throw your children there to do a course for the sake of it. Look, angalia uko mbele. What is coming? Will it be relevant? Like me, I did a course that I wish I knew these things. I went to study something that the market got saturated so fast it became irrelevant. And my dad spent millions taking me abroad to go and study. Thank God I have a very open mind. So I started moving around and I figured some other things which I'm passionate about. How many people are lucky to have that? So it starts with you. And that's why it has to come down to your children at the same time, okay? So that's what this part was all about. Quickly, before I end up, allow me please just to take you through where do we get now the capital? The capital we need to actually buy these cash flowing assets. So from here, I've told you the only two ways of going about it. Number one is savings and two is credit. So credit, we're talking about borrowing, okay? So whatever money you're coming, if it's saving, it's coming from one of the cash flow quadrants, okay? And that's what I'm repeating here. Remember, the money you make from the left-hand side of the cash flow quadrant, 65% of it goes to the government. So if you want more savings, then you know which side to be. And when you're saving, don't save for the sake of it. Make sure you're saving towards the cash flowing asset. Please. Every year, at the minimum, set yourself just one every year, and you see what's going to happen. Then credit. Credit now is about borrowing. Now, because we've been programmed since we were children to be consumers, even when we borrow money, we can't help ourselves. We end up spending borrowed money on liabilities. And this one we're going to tackle next, because the next topic I'm going to teach is borrowing. And we're going to break down borrowing into two parts, what we call good borrowing and bad borrowing. And I'm going to show you what we call taking advantage of other people's money to make money for yourself. Utumi pesa yako, unatumia watu wengine to make yourself wealthy. It's called using other people's money. But this concept sounds so strange to us because we are so used to consuming. Unafikia mtu ameenda amechukua loan aende trip. How will you ever pay that money back? Unachukua loan ukafanya harusi. Hiyo harusi itarudishaje hiyo pesa ya kulipa? That's how deep it is. But once you understand the opposite, that I can borrow money and place it in a cash flowing asset so that that asset generates money and this money pays back the loan. Once I finish with that loan, then the asset becomes mine and it will continue bringing me income. It's a cash flowing asset. So my point would be, how do I preserve it? Or how do I grow it? That's what we miss. And that's why a lot of people, when I meet them, those who attend my classes, they're always telling me, nataka unifunze vile kutoka kwa deni. You want me to jump the ship and teach you exactly how to get out of debt? I can't do that. How did you get there in the first place? Why are you not interested in finding out how you ended up in that mess? Because that understanding is going to help you not to repeat the same mistake. Why? Because financial literacy, they teach you two key things: savings and getting out of debt. Now let's go back and understand the power of you as a creator. The thoughts that get inside you is what you attract. So they keep telling you save, 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 save. So save imeingia, una save, lakini hujui kwa nini una save. The other thing, get out of debt, get out of debt. Why are you thinking about kutoka kwa deni? The more you think about debt, you're increasing them. Because the mind is just thinking deni, 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 deni. That's what you're attracting. Move your minds from thinking about debt and start thinking about cash flowing assets which can sort that mess. And you see how life is going to take off. Forget those formulas they craft there to tell you to talk. Apana, just focus. As long as you're thinking about debt, you as the creator, you're messing yourself. So get out of that thinking and start thinking about cash flow. So we are saying there are two ways of raising capital. Be the decision maker in terms of when you're starting to save. So when I take you through now the next topic of borrowing, I'll be able to blend this very well with you so that you get to see the power of borrowing, of using other people's money, okay? Now, time has gone so fast. I'll just quickly mention two things here. The next time I'm going to get into the details of it. So in terms of our children, I told you we'll be releasing a tool that is going to help children so that we move them from program 1 to 3. So for those of you who might be interested, it's a mobile app that is crafted with psychology. You can start signing up here. We just created this program for those who are interested. You can start signing up. I'll talk more about this one. Then I'll also talk about how do we come up with ways of how we can start raising a generation that is going to shift the consuming thoughts to production thoughts. So you can also go to this link and you're going to read more about us. But I'm going to explain these things to you next time we meet, because I only have 10 minutes and I'd like to give time for people to ask any questions that they may have. So asanteni sana. I hope you've gained more knowledge today. Please apply them. I told you not to wait until the last day of it or the last end of this program for you to apply what you've learned. Start applying each thing that I teach you. Na utaanza kuona tofauti kwako, one by one, one by one, one by one. All right? So thank you very much. Over to you, Madam CEO.
Wow, thank you so much, Andrew. You're right, time has really just gone by so fast. Now, I know members have a lot to say. You could chat. We have just 10 minutes to wrap up. So kindly put your questions on the chat section, your comments, anything you want to say, but also you could just unmute your mic and say something. I can see that we have quite a good number of members on the line. Our delegates have also joined us. Thank you so much. We can see you, Irene, Mr. Ochola. Thank you very much for being here today. Kindly, members, it's your time, as others can be chatting while others are unmuting, and feel free to just shoot a question to Mr. Andrew within the next 10 minutes.
Hello.
Yes, Director Fatuma.
Okay, it's just a question, not a question, real, but about the 50 top savers. I didn't receive the questionnaire. Was it sent through email?
No, the questionnaire was given on site. It was a physical paper, but we can always send it over to your email before we leave here today. Yeah.
Okay, and about what he was supposed to make it for us so that we can follow.
Yes, it's still work in progress. We shall be able to communicate to the team once it's ready.
Okay, okay. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, good evening, members. Thank you for the very well presented discussion today. Good job, Juan Andrew. Thank you, Madam CEO, for setting this up and putting this together. My question is around, I know SACCOs mostly are designed to heavily support the mainstream employees, people who've been who are employed by the government, maybe civil servants and so forth. Mostly they're the ones who are the biggest beneficiaries for SACCOs, but we really know the benefits of it. How can we not only align ourselves to your goals as the rest of us, I mean, the entrepreneurs, guys who are really making their living from the informal sector. How can we really align ourselves to your goals as a SACCO, and how can we also get to benefit from this presentation equally with the same goal in mind? And then also that discipline of I mean if it's a normal salary, it's easier. You can always just put your standing your what do you call it, your normal deductions can be very well structured and deducted from your salary. But in this case, sometimes whenever you're out here as a business person, you don't really have that discipline. How can you always just like not only focus on the mainstream employees, the civil servants, but also maybe how can you structure something for the rest of us who are in the informal sector? You're still on mute, Bonando.
Andrew, kindly unmute.
Oh, sorry, Steve. Thank you for that question. I believe that is inclined towards you, Madam CEO, because you understand your SACCO better in terms of your vision and objectives. But just to throw in my thoughts process around the question Steve has asked, Steve's SACCOs are no longer focusing on just employed staff, because that market has become so saturated. So most of them have started opening up even to SMEs and other works. The advantage I would say that you have, most people see that as a disadvantage, is that since you don't have a fixed income, now that really pushes you to make sure that you're aggressive enough to, that target that you set for yourself. And I believe this is going to become out very clear. I'll urge you to ensure that you don't miss our next class for borrowing. And at the same time, the next one, I'm going to take you through goals and goal setting. Steve, try your level best to attend those two. They are going to address a lot of the questions that you have asked. And the key point here will be, number one, in borrowing, I'll be talking about what I mentioned, using other people's money. It is so easy, but people think it's something very complicated. So I'll break it down for you in the ways that you can start. And the beauty is that SACCOs are the best for this. Number one, why? It's because their model does not allow them to, they share the profits among themselves. Unlike a bank, which the profits go to, individual shareholders. That is why SACCOs are able to give better returns than banks, even through savings. Now, when you think that a bank, if you want a loan and you're trying to take against, let's assume your savings, they'll give you maximum, let's say 80%. A SACCO, on the other hand, will give you 3 times of what you've saved. So if you've saved 100,000, you can qualify for 300,000 in most SACCOs. So that by itself shows you where the capital can come from. And that's why that last slide I talked about, where does this capital come from? So you'll be able to understand this without going into the details of it in my next class after I explain or that. Then the other part will be in terms of goal settings. You will realize after that discussion that most people think they've set goals, but they don't have goals. It's just an idea rushing around the mind. So we're going to come up with a structured way, which is going to aid each one of you to actually set a very specific and well measurable goal you're heading towards. And then that's what I talked about, us working as a group. Even if it will mean we form a WhatsApp group where we're encouraging each other, the whole point of that will be actually to start reprogramming the wrong programs which have been existing so that we accelerate that part. I told you it can become very lonely and it's very easy to give up when you're by yourselves. I hope that at least gives the framework around the questions you asked. So over to you, Madam CEO.
Yeah, thank you. Andrew, just to add something on what Steve has talked about. It's true, traditionally SACCOs were focused on mainstream checkoffs, mainly just for consistency and safety, but the market is changing. People are literally quitting employment or what they call stable jobs to do business. So our SACCO is also into that space. We have members that have either retired and gotten into business or resigned and gotten into business. And because we were with them or they want to join us, we work together. So there's a way of course, we have to help you to save. And Andrew now with the training is able to help us to flip the narrative that it's actually difficult to save when you're in business. So we need to flip that. And then facilities are available, how to secure that loan without guarantors. All that detail is available. We'll be dropping our contacts, mobile lines on the chat so that you're able to contact us directly. Thank you so much, Steve. Andrew, there are some questions on the chat. I can just go through them. One, just to say that all the sessions that we have done up to this point are on our YouTube page, Telepost Sacco YouTube page. So whatever we are doing here today, as of tomorrow, you'll find it. But for the last 5, please note that they are there. When you go to our YouTube page, you are able to go back and review and learn again. There's a member that has asked whether it's okay to borrow for cash flowing assets. I think that's what we have alluded to, but I know there'll be more of that in the next session. Gabriel, please go ahead, Gabriel.
Yes, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I am much more excited about the teachings that I've received today. They were so much explosive and they have made me to think in another new perspective. And I do believe as I move forward, I will be fully involved in saving before spending and doing what is required for the sake of the future and for the sake of what is ahead to be planned for. May God bless you all and more so our mentor, Mr. Andrew, for the explosive teachings and knowledge that he has aired out, and also all the protocol observed from the top leadership and the members who are present. May God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. Thank you so much. Jane, please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks to Andrew. That was a very informative slides. We only wish they came earlier, but it is never too late. I'm just wondering, where do we categorize our SACCO savings? Are they under the straight line or are they cash flow savings?
Madam CEO, I think that is for you.
All right. Thank you so much, Jane. I think what we are learning here, and I'm sure as we have about 6 more sessions to go. So by the time we are almost getting there, we'll be able to have this clear. But what we are saying here, as much as we are saving, for example, one of the things we've learned today is that we only save what is left. That's what we've been doing. So, and sometimes it's not even a straight line. We start high and then reduce as the time goes by. So sometimes it's even a funnel, not even a straight line. But for most of us, it's a straight line. So what Andrew is helping us to understand, we can do something besides the traditional savings. Can we start to do something as a team, as members, that will help us with cash flow generating? So there's what makes you a member in the Sacco, but what can we do apart from that more to help us generate cash flowing assets? So I know we'll be getting into the details of that. Thank you so much, Mbithi. Any more questions, members? We have at least 1 more minute to wrap up. Anyone can just
Good evening,
shoot.
CEO.
Good
Hello.
evening, Chairman.
Hello. Yeah, how are you?
Nzuri sana, karibu.
Hello, how are you?
We can hear you, Chairman.
Unanisikia?
Yes.
Good. So I joined the link a bit late. I was traveling from Nairobi to Shags. That's why I joined a bit late. My question goes to Kibe. At the tail end of today's presentation, you mentioned something to do with the membership, whereby you're saying that you don't need to bother very much about increasing your members physically, but you can utilize the one that are already there and make something out of them in order to improve their living. I don't know whether you can be able to expound at the moment or maybe in the next presentation, because I find it very interesting.
Yes, I'll be happy to explain that to you, Bwana Chairman. So basically, follow me up on this. Did you understand these 3 group of people?
Yes, so I joined a bit late. I joined almost 40 minutes to the end.
Okay.
That's why I got there that left. I'm sorry for that. I was traveling to Shags from Nairobi.
Okay. So simply put,
I really want to get that part of it.
Okay. So simply put, what we're saying is, you see this line I'm drawing here, I'd like you to focus on this end. So we have 2 groups of people. So we have people who do not have, financial education knowledge. They're just existing. Now, by default, these people have been programmed to be spenders. So when the money comes in, they're always thinking of what do I buy, what do I buy? Ukimtumia sasa 500 anafikiria ndanunua nini? It's 10,000 ndanunua nini? So the mind is programmed just to consume. So the second one we're saying is, kunula amefunzwa kusave, which is what the concept of SACCOs are, save, save, save. But why are they saving? That has never been very clear to most people. So in the context of these 2 people, we're saying, tukichukua at the end of the year, they have 0. Second year, 0, because they're not saving anything. Third year, 0, hivyo. After 10 years, huyu akiachishwa kazi, anaanza kuumia instant. Okay? Now, if you take someone here, so we took the CEO as an example, na tukasema huyu amefunzwa kusave. So at the start of working, anajiambia, because I'm taught to save for my future, I'll be keeping 20,000 on the side. So that means his disposable income, the amount he uses to spend is 80,000. Manake anaeka 20 kando. So we're saying if you take that 20 times 12, it means every year she'll be having 240, 240, 240, all the way until 10 years. Kwa hivyo kazi yake ikiisha hapa, atakuwa na hii total yote. But we're saying in terms of growth, every year it's constant. The wealth is just constant. 240, 240, 240, 240, 240. Now, these are the 2 types of people who exist today in this country of ours. You have savers or those who do not save. So when you're teaching people who do not save, when they teach you financial literacy and they push the concept of saving, it makes sense to a lot of people because a lot of people have nothing saved up. But now we are introducing a 3rd group of people who we are calling the cash flow asset focus. And we said everything is in the mind. So the goal here is we want to take our members to the next level. Don't just save for the sake of saving, but let's start saving towards cash flowing asset. And let's focus on just at least 1 cash flowing asset every year. So we gave an example of this guy, of this lady called Marianne from diaspora, who decides I'll be saving 30,000. That's why the disposable income is 70. So that 30,000 per year is going to give her 360. bado ako na shortfall ya 40 because she wants to buy an Uber, which is a cash flowing asset. So the interest or dividends paid to her, she's not going to misuse them. She's going to top up because she's short of buying that Uber. Akinunua, we made an assumption that that Uber will be giving 2,000 daily. So 2,000 daily times 30 is 60,000 a month. Times 12, you end up with 720. So by the end of second year, the one focusing as a creator, by focusing on cash flowing asset, has already surpassed Mariana Paivco, who has a total of 480. And as this first cash flowing asset is bringing money, she continues saving for the second one. So in the second year, this would be the money coming from the first cash flowing asset, and this will be the second cash flowing asset in the second year. In the third year, this will be the first, the second, and the third. So if you look at the graph in terms of wealth every year, for a person who's focusing on cash flowing asset, it's forming a pyramid expansion. So what we are saying, or to answer your question, is if your members can focus on cash flowing asset, and those assets are tied back to the circle, then it's like bringing another member who's been saving. So for example, this cash flowing asset one, this is Marianne here, but this second one, you can call it Marianne 2. So one person has sort of multiplied within the space, but it's the same person. But the focus now is on the cash flowing asset. And the beauty about this thing is the moment a few of your members try this thing and start getting results, it will be a snowball. Have you understood, Bwana Chairman?
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Chairman, for that. Members, I think unfortunately we will have to stop there for tonight. Thank you so much, Andrew. I think we may not even exhaust, but we'll keep getting your questions at the chat. Please feel free to call us, drop a message on our WhatsApp, and then when Andrew begins the next session, he can actually pick up from what we are yet to respond to. But we are very grateful, members. Please note that by tomorrow, whatever we have done here today will already been uploaded. Also, we are reminding you, prepare for the April training for your children. Be on the lookout for that. We will be sharing the details as time comes, as we draw there. So thank you so much. Watch out for session 7 in the next 2 weeks. We are doing this twice every month until we do a whole 12 sessions and see how to pick up from there. Thank you so much, members, and wishing you all a good night.